dokie. So, Borada, everyone. Diolch Bao for being here. That's all my Welsh for the day. That's all we're going to hear. My name is Alex Leon, and I'm moderating a brilliant discussion today presented by LGBTQ Cymru, and it's going to be about why Black Pride and BAME Pride matters. And this is part of the Wales-wide virtual Pride series of events. And I have two brilliant panelists with me today that I'm super excited to talk to. I've got Shash and Aaron. So I'm actually going to let you both introduce yourselves, actually, rather than me kind of, do a terrible job. So Shash first, tell us all about you.
Yeah, I'm Shash. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a local activist in Cardiff. I'm currently on disability and then working towards finishing my degree in computer science.
Amazing. Brilliant. And Aaron.
Hi everyone. My name is Aaron Carty. I am the head of UK Black Pride there. There you go. That's wrong, isn't it? Not yet. Maybe give it 15 years. Let me start that again. So I'm Aaron Carty. I am the head of marketing and brand for UK Black Pride. I am also Beyonce of Beyonce Experience, and my pronouns are he, him.
Oh,
brilliant.
Yeah, should mention I'm from Glitter Cymru as well. That's probably
well, I could do like a little. So so we have two brilliant panelists from both UK Black Pride and Glitter Cymru. So these are organizations that are focusing in on the experiences of Black and Brown queer people, both UK wide and specifically to Wales. So brilliant panelists for today's discussion. Now, I know that I know that the general theme of the discussion is around Black and BAME prides. But before we talked about the importance of these celebrations, and I think it is important that we do discuss that, I wanted to kind of zoom out slightly because I think that we can't really talk about the importance of these spaces without talking about the reason that they exist. And I think we can all hopefully agree that the reason they exist is broadly racism. And I think within the context of what's been happening, with the murder of George Floyd and the sort of resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the world finally listening to Black folk who've been talking about this for such a long time, we're getting this kind of renewed interest in racism, in anti-Blackness, and kind of the things that those of us on the call know as part of like an inherent part of our lives. So before I wanted to talk about Black and BAME sort of pride celebrations, I wanted to ask and only if you're comfortable, how do you feel about this kind of resurgence of interest in racism generally, but also this resurgence of interest in racism and anti-Blackness within the LGBTQ plus community? Because I feel like there has been that resurgence within our community as well.
Sure. I mean, that's a really great place to start, I think. And also, I think I have quite a unique perspective on that. I actually used to be a police officer myself. So I was a police officer for 5 years. So, I've been a Black gay police officer. So I've seen every single facet of racism within the organization. But more importantly, I think being able to see it from now the other side, and the things that I experienced in the police when it comes to racism, I now know why massively they weren't talked about. And that really comes down to really that, racism being so institutionalized in so many different areas, that it can just be passed on as a joke. Or, it's just how it is. It's just how people are. I'm not racist, but we've all heard that recently, which is a little bit frustrating to hear. But at the same time, I think this is where social media has really played that role, because I think a lot of people now are those that may not have spoken out in the past are now filming things and they're putting them online for other people to see. And I think that's so important there.
Yeah, absolutely. Shash.
Yeah, I'm glad there's just been such a resurgence, especially and critical thinking within how anti-Blackness is pervasive in a variety of communities. There's actual intersectional analysis, which is really important. because it is very prevalent within the LGBTQ community. Well, like just Grinder, for example, is a prime example of how filters and stuff like that can be used to discriminate essentially based on race. And uh, yeah, it's my only worry at the moment is I don't want this to become like a trend or anything like that. I want this to actually push forward and keep going. I feel like, especially in the UK, we're not talking enough about institutionalized racism within the Met Police and how pervasive it is. I feel like, I mean, we've had an issue in Cardiff recently with the BLM Cardiff. There's been a split in the fact that half of it wants to become a charity instead of the grassroots organization it is. Not real, and then also throwing bouts of threats of legal action because of that. And it's showing one of the issues with this is in the sense of people, this isn't some hierarchical organization like the police, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. It's a community driven effort, and showing that while the powers that be may not fight for us, we can fight for each other and hold each other up, essentially.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder as well, and I don't know whether this is something that either of you have experienced or seen before, and I'd be delighted to hear more if you have. Is I sometimes get the sense that queer people, or queer white people, I should say, because they are marginalized in one way, right? You know, they're queer, so they're gay, they're lesbian, they might be bi or trans or whatever. They kind of almost feel like they are immune to perpetuating discrimination or marginalization to others, right? And they're like, well, you know, I'm gay, so it's already really hard for me. Like, I can't be a bad person. I can't discriminate. It's like, well, actually, it doesn't give you a free pass. And I'm really curious whether either you have thoughts on that, or you've experienced that, or kind of seen that in action before, and kind of how you've reacted.
Yeah, I feel it's a large part. I feel a lot of it's appropriation. A lot of it, it's just the one. It's the one main thing I see a lot of, and it's kind of just passed off as, oh, but we're gay, it's fine, kind of thing. And I feel, uh, it feels. I see it especially, and like I know it's a lot more talked about, but I've been in scenarios where it's, you know, it's a queer community, it's where I'm meant to feel safe, and then I'll see someone who's doing something cultural appropriate, like wearing it's like a white person wearing dreads, for example, and it's just, and I like, I feel uncomfortable calling it out because because I'm worried. My worry is that not that people will back me, like I'm worried that people won't back me up. Essentially, people tell, and I've had this happen before where people have told me, it's like, please don't make a big issue of it. Essentially, kind of thing. Like, you know, it's just an art, and it's just, people don't realize that you can't just ignore racism. You have to be really anti-racist, and that's, I'm glad there's a huge push for that right now. And you have to be actively anti-racist. You can't just do a bit of anti-racism one day and then say, oh well, I've done my quota for the week, so let's give myself a cookie and I'll carry on being who I was.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. And I've definitely had that situation where people say, please don't make a scene. You know, I think people will know me to talk about the elephant in the room. And when that comes to race, actually, that's when people get a little bit more uncomfortable talking about it. And I think people in our community specifically, I think you're right, Alex, they say, well, I'm gay, I know how it feels, I know how to be marginalized. And I say to them a lot, and it's something I've said a lot this week, and I've said, to a degree, if you want to, you can hide your sexuality, or you at least don't have to talk about it. You know, if you're of color, you can't hide it. Walking down the street, getting on the bus, whatever you're doing, you cannot hide it. You know, it's not a part of you can suppress. And actually, I think we see that in our own community. We see people of color really suppressing every single aspect of, whether it be their culture or their religion, just to fit in, with the LGBTQI community. And that's,
Totally.
to me, that's more scary. And I think to a degree, when I was younger, even I did that. I think in school I was thinking, oh gosh, right, well, I can't be gay, so I need to hide that. And well, it's not popular to be black, so unless you're a sports star, so I'm not, so I need to hide that element. And then it's just like, well, who am I? Like I'm not, getting to the age. I was in the police at 18, and at that point I didn't know who I was. Because you're right. People, you're trying to deal with just one facet, whether that just be your sexuality, bring race into that as well. And I think that's where, if the community could do one thing right now, it's just don't have an opinion. Just listen to people's lived experiences. Your opinion doesn't matter right now. No one's does. If you're going to use your voice, use it to amplify that of others, who perhaps can't talk about it themselves, or perhaps feel they are going to make an issue out of it, where it should be a unified group doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I also think this idea around disclosure and the ability to disclose or not disclose kind of a part of your marginalization is really, really interesting. I think I think it also maybe speaks to why the kind of so much power within our community is sort of centered around white gay men, right? Because although they are gay, they're still white men, and so they still have a certain access to particular spaces that the likes of the three of us wouldn't necessarily have. And that comes down to their ability to sort of, I guess, even though it's very harmful to not be authentic and to turn on and off your I guess like perception of your sexuality or gender, I guess, it's still it's still an option, and that's a really, really interesting kind of concept. Right. So moving swiftly on, so I think we've kind of done a little bit of context building, which I feel good about. We're talking about kind of black and BAME. I think I'm going to throw the term BAME out. I think I'm going to say black and brown. Yeah, I think I'm going to say black and brown queer spaces. And I know that's not as encompassing necessarily, but maybe we could say, spaces for black and brown and indigenous people and ethnic minorities. There's never a way to do it, which is, which is not a bit of a mouthful, but I'd really love to hear from you both. I have my own feelings and thoughts on this. If you had to convince someone, if you had to convince a skeptical person as to why these spaces exist or need to exist, what would you say?
Oh, that's a good one. You know what? I have two thoughts on this. The first one is that I do not need to justify why I need this space.
Yeah.
So no, if you don't get it, it's not for you. However, if you want to come along and understand that this space is to celebrate us, you are welcome to come. But understand what this space is for and educate yourself first on why we have those spaces. But at the same time, we're not living in such this justification, at the same time. And, I love to, try and champion being a diplomat and, at least trying to educate people at the same time. So I'm always, on this line.
That's what Beyonce would do.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm Beyonce more off stage than I am on stage. I'm such the diplomat. I really, really am. So yeah. So I'd also flip on that and say, when we're talking about these safe spaces, you've only really got to, if you haven't been to one, you've only really got to understand that, if you are queer and a person of color, there's those two facets there that you have to deal with. Nowhere can you be safe, with those two things combined. So it's really important just to let us have a space where we can live, we can celebrate our own lived experiences. It's such a unique position we find ourselves in when you are clear and brown and black, but you can't express it anywhere. And I think I've worked with larger prides. I've worked with Pride in London for a numerous of years, and like you say, Alex, we can't even really justify or really put everyone in a box by saying black or brown or people of color. We're always missing someone out. So the mainstream prides, of course, they're mainstream, so they're going to miss a facet out. And that's why it's so important to have smaller spaces, safer spaces, where we can just get together and just have that celebration. We all attend the mainstream prides. We're all part of them. We're not segregating ourselves from it, but we also want an addition to that.
Yeah, I feel I feel the same way about going on about Pride. I guess is I feel like a lot of mainstream prides, especially the big corporate events that are like basically musical festivals now, um, it really caters not to the community in a sense, and more caters to, you know, white cishet people and their wallets. Really, it's just about it. And then it's just, it's like, and I'm like, I want pride. I get pride's meant to be a protest in a sense, but also I want people within, like at Pride, to feel safe. You know, like I want to. That's why I feel like these spaces are so important. Where on earth do I feel safe? Really, is the big question. Safe and like I can talk or feel like unrestricted in some way. I'm not censoring myself to appease or not like cause any kind of conflict, really, because that's the problem. It's like even if I'm in a generally queer safe space, if it's mostly white people, I'm already censoring things about like I can't I like a lot of the time I will inadvertently subconsciously not talk about my heritage and stuff like that, because there's like I have obviously a lot of uh black and brown people have mixed feelings about their heritage when they come out, and it can be because either there's uh the culture can be kind of homophobic or queerphobic, or it's that part of it's been erased due to a colonialism and stuff like that, and it's tricky to get that across, especially to a group of white queer people without sound, and them not go and them suddenly going, oh, but it's okay now, we fixed everything, and this is, and it's not addressing that hurt and harm still exists, and that's why we need that space just for queer black and brown people, just to feel safe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm like the biggest. I mean, you hear Black Pride should pay me because I spend every day just shouting at people, telling them how brilliant it is, which it is. It really, really is. And it sort of was the first time I ever felt a true sense of belonging. And I think that's really powerful. So, with the knowledge and understanding that I think we all agree, obviously, that these are really important spaces to hold for people of color, Black people, brown people within our community. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, the mainstream Pride celebrations will continue to exist. And I think in an ideal world, although I do want my safe space, I do want my kind of UK Black Pride-esque space, I think I also want to be able to go to these mainstream Pride celebrations and feel like I'm not either actively being excluded or I'm at a kind of, or that I'm an afterthought. And I'm really curious to hear from you both. What do you think that these kind of more mainstream, often white-led and cis-led queer sort of pride organizations and celebrations, what could they do to kind of be more inclusive and to be more open to the Black and brown people within our community?
One easy way for most prides is no cops at Pride. I feel like that's such a, and I'm not saying, I feel like people always get this the wrong way in the sense of, but it's an active allowing them to participate in a sense of in the parade or having a stall or having, and like I don't think it's not sensitive to have that. I don't feel safe with police around, regardless of if they're gay or queer. Like don't. It's just I just from my race itself, it's been an issue for me, and I'm only South Indian, and I know um my black people have it so much worse in a lot of cases because I I just don't understand how you can say you're an inclusive event when police actively are an exclusionary force. They make people feel uncomfortable. In Glitter Cymru, for example, we have quite a few asylum seekers and quite a few people who have come from countries where the police is used as a tool to actively suppress queer people. And for them to want to take part in a pride event where those oppressors are there, it's traumatic and insensitive, and it doesn't feel safe. It just doesn't.
Totally.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, that's really upsetting to hear. Obviously, like I say, I've been on both sides of that. I've been a police officer at Pride, And I guess fortunately, it's always been quite a great experience, especially to be a police officer and to attend Pride, and be quite young. So yeah, but it's to then see the flip side of that and really understand that people do see that as a sign of of just real fear sometimes. I think, to go back to your question though, I think actually you're right. It's all about who is running these prides. And actually you see it, and we all, to a degree, if you're organizing something, the first thing you do is you hit up your friends and you hit up the people, and it's within those circles very, very quickly. And I generally feel the applications that they have are just a tick box exercise. I still think it's just them having a good night out just on a larger stage with their friends. So I think I put it back on the community actually a lot of the time, and the same reason I got involved in Black Pride. I thought to myself, this is such an amazing organization and I can see what they want to do. But at the same time, I can see where my skills could help the organization. So that's why I decided to volunteer, and I actually emailed Lady Phil and I said, I don't care what you want me to do. I don't care what's available. I'll come along. Can I just be involved?
I actually love that.
Probably shouldn't have said that because I ended up doing everything. Not everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm being dramatic, but a lot more than a volunteer role. But it's because I love it, And I think it's on us. And I think you got to think these safe spaces only exist because these, smaller organizations or individuals like Lady Phil have taken it on themselves to create it. And it's the classic line: if you don't invite me to the table, I will create my own. So I would say I'd put it out to the community. I would say get involved in your local pride and make that change that you want to see. Don't expect someone to do it for you.
Yeah, totally. I also think it's so interesting, and I'm not going to name any prides here in particular, but if you can probably make an educated guess. I always think it's interesting to look at, even where there are, Black and brown people, people of color, volunteering and working for certain mainstream pride organizations. What I always find interesting and important to look at is who's at the top, right? So where is the power kind of centered? And usually it's, well, in almost every case that I can think of, it's white people and white cis people. Anyway, so speaking of white people, I want to ask a question about kind of the concept of a safe space and also the inclusion of white people in these safe spaces. So I think one of the things that, some of the criticism that I sometimes hear about these kind of, queer, Black and brown spaces is that white people are like, well, you're segregating the community, and, we allow, I mean, this is very petty, but like, we allow you to our celebrations, but we're not allowed to go to your celebrations, and all this stuff that I think we can all, breathe out a collective sigh of like, oh my God. That being said, I think it's actually really interesting to talk about the function, if there is one at all, in your opinion, of white people coming to and being a part of these celebrations. And I know it's very context dependent because it depends on the particular celebration, but I guess with, UK Black Pride and Glitter Cymru, I'm really curious to hear, like, what is your take on this?
So Glitter Cymru in particular, we have, well, at the moment we have weekly Zoom kind of calls, but usually what we have is a monthly meetup, and that's just a safe space for being the LGBTQ people, and that's what we tell people. And we do get requests from time to time from journalists and stuff like that saying, can we sit in and observe? And we've very much so said no, purely because of we don't feel comfortable. This isn't a space for you to observe and gawk and look at. This is a space for people to, vent their whatever they have on there or whatever we're doing that time. And we tell them, like, we have events that we do specifically to cater to expand reach and stuff, like Glitter Talks and stuff like that, where we have speakers from Glitter Cymru to talk about personal stories or whatever topic we have on, and that's advocate to the wider public, and it's to get people to learn about that intersection and how things affect us and what things we're proud about, and that kind of thing. I think another way of I found that, like, people that complaining about integration and segregating or whatever, I think it's a bit like I'm from a South Indian community, and so we have Diwali and the kind of events, and kind of the thing that we do tend to be is white people take part, but it's under the management of brown people. You know, like they're told like, okay, you can do that, but just don't do that because that's incredibly. And it's just, I think partially it's just listening half the time, and it's just don't like let if you're going to take part in someone's culture or event or anything like that, it's kind of just being like, well, you're here as a guest, you know, so maybe just listen to us and respect that a little.
Yeah, I really
Mm.
I really champion that, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there. It's just like going to the going to another half's parents, for the first time. You're not just going to be yourself, are you? You're going to want to know a little bit more. You're going to want to know about them, what they're the ways of how they are and how they do things. And then you're going to be very respectful when you're in that space. So I think I would say I'd very much want our white counterparts to come along to these events, but do your education first, do your research, and come respectfully.
Right. Well, I don't know what happened, but I just like
Oh,
ducked out of the Zoom call. Did you see that happen?
Yeah, you dropped out a little.
Oh my God.
Alex, I
I was
said
like,
that
what?
was my killer
Oh, I
line as
didn't hear.
well.
I didn't
Yeah,
hear it,
we
Aaron.
said some
So
very
sorry.
influential
Oh,
things.
we did. Oh,
I'm so
typical.
sorry. I have no idea what happened. Yeah, I
Where
mean,
did we get up
that
to?
doesn't work there. Zoom is actually like, we were talking about, so Shash, you were talking about white people at Diwali, and then we don't have to repeat it because
No.
if it's been recorded, then they'll just cut me not being in now. Aaron, what were your cliff notes just in case?
I'll paraphrase what I was going to say. So, I think I definitely say it's. I love the idea of having white people at our events. I definitely think that there's a little bit of research and educating of themselves. Don't rely on the black and brown people to do it for you or to quiz them. Do it yourself. And when you're there, be respectful. And we've always said that at UK Black Pride. We get the question asked so many times, are white people allowed? I've been told I can't come because I'm white. And we have never excluded anyone from UK Black Pride. What we have definitely said, though, is that understand why it exists, what we're here to celebrate, and help us celebrate. Now, that doesn't just mean on the day. It doesn't mean come and have a piss up and enjoy our culture and our music and our food and our bodies. You need to support us throughout the entire year. And I think it's very evident to those that come because they are a genuine ally and they are, amplifying our voices throughout the year. And you definitely see the ones that rock up on the day, hungover from Pride before, just to continue the party.
Totally. We've all seen that. Well, you kind of, yeah. You kind of like almost stole my next question, but I'm still going to ask it because I think it's important, and then we're going to start talking about white people. But again, there is this kind of skepticism of this like idea of segregation. And I do certainly come across a lot of white queer folk who I guess maybe are confused or don't understand the function of these spaces, and I do my best always to try and kind of convince them if I have the time or the energy that day. But one thing I thought would be kind of useful to talk about is the white folk that do come to these events. As far as I'm concerned, coming to the events is not enough, right? And you were talking before, Aaron, about the idea of white people supporting throughout the year. How do you think that people who want to be allies can support, both Glitter Cymru and UK Black Pride, not just on the day by rocking up with a drink in hand, but throughout the year?
I think it's very easy. Stop talking about your own experiences and your opinion of others' experiences. I think that's goal number one. But secondly, amplify those voices. If you have a platform, if your platform is just your white voice with 10 followers, it's still influential. So, do your research, but don't keep it to yourself. share it with your friends groups. You know, I think we often see it. We see one person from a friends group who is a little bit more switched on, who has done their research, and then the others, you know, not so much. And so I would say, if you want to support us, amplify our stories and our voices to your friends groups, you know, to your families, to, you know, to the generations in your family that just do not get it. You know, it's so draining. Come on, we're all right now so drained having to have these same conversations. You know, we really need to take care of our own mind well-being. So, you know, stop relying on us to you know, to fight this fight. Use your voice.
I
Totally.
think, yeah, especially, and I get the question from allies a lot. What can I do? And then I'm always like, it's a it's a large question. I don't know what you can do because I don't know you. I rather you suggest something that you can do, and if it's applicable, I'll say, yeah, that's great. No, that's bad. And then we can move on. Give me a yes or no question, and then I'm okay. um, it,
I would need.
yeah, I get it. It's. I know it comes from a good place. I know that that question does come from a place of, oh yeah, I want to do better, but I feel like it needs to be phrased in a way where, like, well, I can't tell you what to do. What I can't micromanage you. You've got to take initiative to be a better ally in a lot of the time, and that is talking about amplifying the voice, educating yourself, calling out discrimination when you see it, and and stuff like that. Really.
I would have to add one thing to that. If there's ways you want to help, give us your money.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Give us your money. These organizations, I tell you what, are running on fumes the entire year, and they do so much work. So many people put so many hours in, which matches their full-time job for free. There is no funding available. So we need your money. We need you to help put your money, you know, put your hand in your pocket and give. If it's £1 a month, we're very grateful for it, because that money is going directly straight into the community. So that's how you can help, you know. And I think that's a good thing. If you don't want to, you know what, if you don't want to educate yourself because you don't read, or you don't want to come to the events anyway, but you want to help, just give us some money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Open your purses. Thank you and goodbye.
No,
Okay.
I joke. Yeah, I joke. But you know, there's so much work that goes on, and you know, behind the scenes. And I think that's one thing, especially at UK Black Pride, that we don't really promote. We don't promote the work that we do so much in the community, because sometimes it's private, sometimes it's working with groups that, you know, we don't want to amplify their voices. We just want to talk. You know, we just want to help them through difficult times, and money does that. So money, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the work that you know, organizations like UK Black Pride and Glitter Cymru do are also very, you know, they're internal, and they're extending community care, and those types of work, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not always a kind of flash bang sort of, you know, they're not the kind of work that you can always like tweet about and be. It's like, this is like looking after people who need help, right? And so it's yeah, it's so important that anyone watching, open up your purses, open up your wallets. Take the strings off the money bag.
Because I mean, Glitter Cymru, we're not all activists or speakers or anything like that. A large part of us are just here for talking with other, you know, POC LGBTQ people, because we have a shared experience. And and like a lot of the money, like we do apply for grants, and a lot of that money goes to supporting the people, because, you know, disadvantaged backgrounds and systemic discrimination makes it harder, and things like counseling and like money for that and stuff can go so far, especially it makes a world of difference. Money does, it really does. So yeah, white people, please throw money at us, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, brilliant. Well, I think that's, at least for me, talking about white people now. I'm going to move us to, I guess, queer, black and brown joy, or that's how I'm going to phrase it. If you feel comfortable, I'd love you both to kind of share your experiences, your favorite experiences of being a part of, you know, Glitter Cymru and UK Black Pride, being in these spaces which are so affirming, so validating, so wonderful. Like, I'd love to hear from you about, you know, what are some moments that you had being, volunteers and working for these organizations that you treasure?
I think one of my favorite memories is like my coming out story isn't particularly a fun one, to say the least. Um, but I always, whenever I talk about it with, queer white people or anything, I always get like the pity remark kind of thing, and I feel kind of just. But when I did it for, like, with Glitter Cymru for the first time, I didn't feel that kind of, oh, you poor thing kind of thing. Like, I felt like a sense of solidarity in a sense. Like, I felt like they know what it's like. They have some genuine, like, they have felt what I felt at some point, and that just, it made me feel a bit more whole, like just that little piece that I had lost at some point, and made me feel a bit more complete as a person, knowing that I'm not alone in that kind of scenario, and that we can all collectively heal if together. And that was genuine. I still think about that kind of thing, and it makes me so happy.
I so relate.
That's really lovely. Yeah, I think actually one of my most joyous experiences was actually at UK Black Pride last year after I'd performed. I was actually being interviewed on camera after the performance, and they said, "Tell us what you think about Lady Phil and UK Black Pride." And honestly, I just started crying for about 5 minutes.
Oh.
Like I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop, and also I couldn't answer the question. I was like, "What?" And why do I love it so much? And do you know what? I think it's that whole idea of being in a space that you're not thinking about or have zero fears. And it's so weird to think, oh, I've got to come here to have zero fears. Walking down the street, are they looking at me funny? Is someone going to judge how I'm dressed? Am I going to be heckled? It's so, until you're in that safe space. And I think the word safe space gets chucked around as if it's such a unique little, pocket. It's not. It's just being amongst, like you said, Shash, people who have been through those experiences, and you can never get that again. Every year is so different, because I feel, it's amazing to see people of all ages coming out. And when I say coming out, I mean, coming out in public, and people that are doing so much hard work behind the scenes finally celebrate themselves, and you see them having a good time. You think, this is why I do it.
Totally. I also cried at UK Black Pride last year. I'll put my I'll put my hands up. I'll admit to it. I wasn't on camera though, and I wasn't Beyonce.
Yeah, mine was dressed as Beyonce, and on film. It's actually part of the Pride film, which you'll see at the BFI next
my
week.
Lord.
And I definitely know I'm going to be crying in it, because it's drama gold. So yeah, watch out in the movie.
Brilliant. So I think I have one last question before we wrap up, and I wanted to, we've been talking a lot about Pride celebrations, and these particular Pride celebrations that Shash and Aaron, you're both a part of. And I think I love Pride Month. We talk about Pride, we think about Pride all the time, but I sometimes get the sense that we don't always really reflect on what we're proud of. So I'm going to ask you both to share with me, with whatever you feel comfortable, something that you're proud of.
Oh, something I'm proud of. Do you know what? It sounds really cheesy, but I'm genuinely proud to give my time to such an important organization like UK Black Pride, and seeing the work that it does. I run my own digital agency, which is extremely successful. And I also travel the world dancing as Beyonce. I get so much joy out of those things, but nothing really compares to the work that I do at Black Pride for free, which gives me the most satisfaction in my life.
I think
Love that.
I think the thing I'd say I'm most proud of is I, I, I like I'm proud of the family I found. I guess I found the chosen family, and it's like sometimes you can feel so alone, and then especially with the pandemic and lockdown coming along, even though I'm like, stuck in my flat and not really, I don't feel truly like I've lost everyone. I have people I can lean on, and that wouldn't be possible without these community organized like Glitter Cymru and BAME Pride, and like all these small things that make that it makes me happy and proud to like actually live on this planet and be doing things. I guess anything I do, I feel like, oh yeah, I can use it to help people I love and that kind of thing. And it's just, that's essentially what I'm just proud of, I guess. Yeah.
Love it. And I am proud that we are able to hold this space as queer, Black, and brown people and just like talk about issues that matter to us, right? And not have
Shout
white
out,
people
Alex.
jump in and be not have white people jump in and be like, wait, well, none of that, right? It's been such a delightful experience for me to hear from both of you about, these topics that I also really care about as well, and to hear kind of your experiences around being a part of these really important and I really think kind of, I don't know what the word is, but I think that these types of organizations like UK Black Pride and Glitter Cymru, they're sort of like, they're trailblazers, right? They're organizations that are doing such important intersectional work. And I'm just so glad and so proud that we have this space to celebrate them and to tell people to open up their purses and throw money at them both.
Yeah.
Right.
I will literally shake my booty at UK Black Pride for money, just to let you know. So if you need an incentive, I will be dropping it down low, shaking that booty, as long as you're throwing that money.
I've seen it and it's very impressive. Right, brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for your time today, and thanks to everyone who's watching at home. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to open your purses and have a brilliant Pride Month. Bye.